We have some things, I'm going to revisit some topics I discussed before. But first, I really was totally digressing from anything I was thinking about discussing earlier in the week or anything that was discussed at the debate. Just in case you are not aware, on Tuesday night, or actually I found out Tuesday night, I think it was during the day, the United States Senate, 88 out of the 100 senators voted in favor of a military appropriations bill that contained an amendment written by your very own, well, maybe you don't want to think of him as your very own, but Michigan's own Senator Carl Levin, along with the Republican Party's very own, and maybe many of the Republicans don't want to think of him as their very own either, John McCain, which does the following. It makes it possible, it essentially grants the president the authority, if he so deems necessary, to simply identify people to be arrested and use military troops, armed forces, not police, not FBI agents or something like that, armed forces to come in, take people prisoner without due process, and hold them until, and the wording is, there's an end of any hostilities, which in the war on terror means essentially a life sentence. So at this point in time, it hasn't quite become law, but it's pretty close on its way to going there. We may not really have a political process, a real political process left, because obviously anyone who sticks up too much like the tall blade of grass might just be whisked away. So if for some reason you stop hearing from Scotty Boman all of a sudden, or some of the people in this room you stop hearing from, well, I guess we know what happened there. So I just want to make you aware of that, and you can contact your senators and congressmen and try to ask them to put the brakes on this whole thing. They probably have to go around some of their internal congressional rules to do anything at this point. There are a couple, and then Thursday night, there was yet an even more severe attempt, as if one can't imagine it getting worse, because essentially this nullifies all rights as it is. Nullifies the protection of those rights. Another bill was introduced to amend the one I just mentioned, to make it so that even if you are found not guilty in a court of law, that troops, the president can choose to override that, send troops, have you taken away, and so forth, like I just said. So even putting aside double jeopardy and essentially undoing due process, making it irrelevant. If you're found guilty, good, due process works. If you're found not guilty, oh, in that case, we're going to get you anyway. So, just, in case any of you weren't aware of that, I know it's probably a very aware group, and perhaps most of you are. One thing I found when I was speaking at the debate, and thank you very much for having a very well put together, well organized, very professional presentation, very balanced debate. I really appreciate that. I can't imagine it being much better. It was terrific. But one thing I did find out in the course of the evening was a lot of people approached me with the implication that, while often very nicely saying it, that somehow saying things that implied somehow my ideas were fringe or weird or radical, which I would have expected maybe out in the general society at large. But I'm looking at the mission statement of the Plainwell Patriots, and most of you probably know it by heart, but I just want to read it back. Really, we believe in our God-given inalienable rights, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and the United States of America is a democratic republic, not a democracy. So do I. That's one of the reasons I have the opinions I do. We believe that America's founding was exceptional, and that it is our civic duty to be knowledgeable and informed voters to secure and promote our liberties for our posterity. So do I. As citizens, we have a responsibility to hold our elected officials accountable to their oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So do I. We agree with Patrick Henry when he said, the Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government. lest the government come to dominate our lives and interests, and clearly it has. Actually, I'm going to reread that part, because that part really, the Constitution is not an instrument for the government to restrain the people. It is an instrument for the people to restrain the government, lest the government come to dominate our lives and interests. And that's essentially, that right there, so far is already the core of what I've been saying. Let's see what we have after. We will do all we can do to help educate and promote individual liberty, like I drove 3.5 miles, and state the national sovereignty, our constitutional rights, limited government, as enumerated by the Constitution. I agree totally with all of that. So actually, this is very radical and fringe, but not radical and fringe here, I don't think. Radical and fringe to the mainstream media, which, by the way, decided to report on a whole myriad of exceedingly small issues without bringing up that the Senate just voted for martial law. So I think we know media is essentially dominated by the establishment just as much of Congress is. Okay, now to clarify some more of my views here. Okay, one thing that came up here, and I think one thing that seemed to surprise people, and I was at another event in Milford also, where there was another debate in Canning Forum, concerned the ideas of freedom of religion and freedom of personal practices. There didn't seem to be, not many people really found much difference with me on economics and on the need to cut spending, on a dislike for taxes, but there's definitely an opposition to the building of debt. And even my views on the Federal Reserve System seem fairly well received, though the mainstream would have you think that anyone who's for abolishing the Federal Reserve is crazy or something. But, see, they're listening. All because you're paranoid. Anyway, but really what I was pushing is the idea of consistency. Okay, in my opening statement, one way I expressed it is I gave the analogy of free speech and how, well, people say things that we may know are outright wrong or that are offensive and so forth, but we generally will tolerate what they're saying because we also have our opinions and we want to be able to get the word out there without being silenced before having a chance to express it. And then it's really up to using that free speech to show that someone who is wrong, and that someone who's offensive is just being offensive. And we can do that. And I used the analogy that personal behavior is the same way as long as it doesn't involve violence and the use, either direct violence in the sense of, okay, I can steal from someone directly, or I can use the government as a conduit whereby to do the stealing. I can hurt someone directly, or I can use the government as an instrument to go about doing that. That as long as one is not using violence or somehow depriving or defrauding people of their property, that rather than tolerating what other people do. And that's right there in the core of, again, you know, that mission statement I'm looking about. That the duty of the law, and of especially the Constitution, the supreme law of the land, is to restrain government, not to restrain people. Now, maybe one thing that may catch people off guard is an assumption which has kind of been ingrained by those who would think essentially that the government should try to regulate everything, that allowing a behavior is the same as condoning a behavior. One does not have to condone a behavior to allow it any more than one has to condone a point of view or agree with a point of view to allow it to be expressed. So I think that's one thing that may not have gotten across. Another point is basically a matter of consistency. I'll respect your rights to act this way if you respect mine to act my way. I respect your rights to practice your religious laws if you respect my right to practice my religious laws. And thereby I got into a whole lot of controversy because apparently I found some people have a problem with Muslims being able to practice their religious laws. I don't expect anyone to necessarily, who is not a Muslim anyway, to think that those are good religious laws, though it may happen that they agree on 80% of them with